Welcome to Tabletop Gaming Guild Podcast, a podcast all about the experiences and memories that playing games with friends and families can create. In this episode, we are joined by Brandon and Lexi of All Aboard Gamer, and we will be discussing two-player games. Brandon and Lexi, thanks for joining us. We're really glad for you to be a part of our discussion tonight.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you.
So, James, I think you're going to take the top of the order and start us off with our list of games.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and start off with, I'd say one of my favorite two-player games that I don't get to play very often, and that is Star Wars Rebellion. Star Wars Rebellion is an awesome two-player game where you play asymmetric powers. You're either playing as the Empire, where you have an overwhelming armada of stuff, and you're going and you're trying to find the Rebel base. And you have Death Stars, you're blowing up planets, or you play as the Rebel Alliance, where the only thing you have is the ability to try to sway systems to your side and try to gain enough resistance and loyalty throughout the galaxy to subvert the Empire. So it is a very stressful, in a good way, game. It is amazing how no matter what side you're on, you're like sweating profusely, because if you're the Empire, you're like, where the heck are these people at? You think you've got everywhere on the board, and you're like, where are they? And when you're the Rebellion, you're like, oh my gosh, they have a Death Star right beside me. What? It is an amazing game. I love the game. I think Nathan and I played it at least 3 times. I played it with some other friends a couple times. It's just, the issue with the game is it is pretty rules heavy, so there's a lot of nuancy rules for it, and it takes a good chunk of time. But it is definitely a game that is worth learning how to play and worth playing. It is a wonderful two-player game. So that is my pick.
Sign me up.
Yeah,
that sounds fantastic.
Now, the only thing I'll say is it is only a good two-player game. There is a variant for 3 and 4, not good. Good two-player.
If someone is teaching you this game, don't let them play the Empire. Make them play the Rebels.
That's not a bad idea.
I was a newbie and played the Rebels, and the Empire player steamrolled me. And it was definitely tense, but it was very, very fun. Very fun.
Did you play with the advanced rules yet? Or I hope not on your first game.
I think I played with the expansion, which had the addition, the better combat. I think it's been a while, but I don't know if it was the advanced rules or not. I think the expansion was in the game.
Yeah, the expansion definitely gives the better combat. It also gives a more variety for your units, which is really good. So it gives you more strategy, and it fixed some of the cards that are in the game. Some of them were a little overpowered. What the advanced thing is your leaders have a ability. So I've only played with the advanced game once. It is very hard to go from the regular game to the advanced game. You cannot play it like the first time with it, or it'll just be like awful. But it is an amazing game. I love it.
All right. So my first game I'm going to talk about is one that I got earlier this year, just as all the COVID hit and everything, and everybody was at home, and I went down to New Dimensions and picked up The Fox and the Forest, which I am a big fan of. 2-player trick-taking game. It's got a fairy tale story theme kind of in the background, but the thing that I really enjoy about it is you want to win, but not win too much, because the way the scoring system works, you want to kind of fall in the middle of how many tricks you're taking in a round, because if you take too little, then you don't score enough points. If you take too many tricks, you don't score many points, but right in the middle is where you earn all of your points. So you've got to strategically figure out when the person you're playing against, when's a good time to try to make them win, but also when you want to win yourself. So I had never played a trick-taking game with that sort of strategy involved. So The Fox and the Forest, Renegade Games, I'm pretty sure, and is a really, really fun game. And again, it's I think $15, maybe $20. So a very affordable game. And yeah, if you've just got 2 people at home, or you want to teach somebody a real quick game and sit down and play in just 15-20 minutes, The Fox and the Forest by Renegade Games. It's great.
Yeah, Fox and the Forest is amazing. I would almost say it's going to be the best 2-player trick-taking game ever, because I can't imagine another trick-taking game that works at 2 players that I've ever played.
The strategy was just, it blew my mind. I wasn't expecting it to be quite so fun and slightly tense, because again, you're like trying to figure out, should I win this trick or no? And then you think you've got it figured out, and then the other person continues to lose on purpose because they want you to take all the tricks, and you're like, no. So
I don't have any.
Trick-taking games are very underrepresented in our collection, but Fox and the Forest is one that I have probably had in our cart at various online retailers and just never pulled the trigger on it. And I don't know why. So that's a good endorsement for it, Peter.
Yeah, definitely do it. It's good.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to start with an abstract strategy game. It's War Chest. War Chest is pretty literal. It's a war simulation game where you have 16 possible units that you could be playing as, but you will be randomly drawing 4 unit types to be on your team. So each game is going to be somewhat different because you'll have different combinations of units, and each unit has its own way of moving and attacking. And you're using these units to gain control points. The one thing that makes it really interesting is you are drawing these poker chips that count as your units, and when you draw them, you can either use them, place them on the board. Once you got one on the board, the next one you draw, you can either place it on top of an existing unit, make it stronger, or you can use it to move or take an action. The problem is the more you power up the unit, making it stronger by stacking them, that's taking away from your possible movements you can do for these units because you have fewer tiles in the bag to draw. So I think that's a nice, even it does kind of work thematically because, a stronger unit's going to move slower, like more like armor on them or whatnot. It's like, whereas a lighter with leather bound unit is going to be more mobile. So I think that's pretty cool.
I'm interested in this one. I've never played I've played chess, but I've never heard of war chess. So
it's not really chess.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So it's something totally different, it sounds like, but I just never heard of it before.
It's AEG. Shut Up and Sit Down actually just did a video review of it. I think it was Tom, and it was a well done video, one of the most well done videos I've seen on the game, and it really made me want to get it. I've seen it, but we haven't played it. Yeah, we haven't. It's AEG. Yeah.
AEG.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful. You get to pick out your units. Now I believe you're blind drawing your units though, right after you pick them out. And the expansions are really cool because they're just packs of units. So you can sort of tailor it to your to way you want your side to run, but there is that sort of random element on it. It's sort of nice because it breaks up the pure strategy of the game. It is a very heavy strategy game. So it's nice not being deadlocked. You can get that with Onitama. If you played Onitama, Onitama can be a very deadlocky game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just play forever until you're I
won the last game, so.
There you go.
I can brag whenever I win because I rarely ever win, but I do like that game. Yeah. Nice, yes.
Yeah, it's very nice because it's in a small and you get to trade those cards around. Mm-hmm. But that's not on my list. So.
Yeah.
No, spoiler, it's not on mine either. Yeah. So my list, I kind of explained it to him. It's not going to be a lot of 2-player games, but it's going to be a lot of games that I enjoy playing at 2 players because that's typically what we have to do. And now I'm a really Euro style type player. So my game was suggested to us by the lady that owns our local game store. She thought that I might like it. It's Orleans, and I really enjoyed playing it at 2 players. Yeah, I'm getting some okay signals there, so that's good. I just love everything about this game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's in my top 10, and so I don't know the names of the different players, but there's different tracks that you can work on, different areas of the board, science track, knowledge track, and all the while you're doing this, you're building your bag as well, and the different people that you pull out, they do certain things on your player boards, and I just love everything about this game. I can't fully explain it. There's just too much going on, but there's another little exploration route that you can go and get things over there, and it's just really great. I loved it at 2 players.
Yeah, we like games. If I could add this.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a game that you use certain things to turn them into other things, and those kind of games are, I think, right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah,
you really
absolutely.
Like that.
Yes, I like having a lot of options and a lot of thinky things.
And it still has that blind draw.
Yeah.
The blind draw from the bag.
That's what really made it for me.
Yeah, points too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things I didn't think I would ever like, but between Orleans and Quaxoquedlinburg, I'm really liking that bag building sort of thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's just fun.
It's better than rolling dice, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Although I have the same luck. One of the funniest things that ever happened in a game that she and I were playing of Orleans was the monks, the yellow pieces, the wilds. They're hard to obtain. They can be. And there's a mechanism in the game where when, I forget what it is, it's a bad thing that happens. I don't know if it's a famine or what, but you have to reach in your bag and pull out a unit, and the person that you pull out is dead. They're removed from the game. And guess what I pulled out? This whole bag full. It looked like I had a bag full of money.
You wanted the monk.
And I wanted that monk. I wanted the monk so bad. I never pulled it, but when it came time for him to die, guess what I pulled out of the bag? The yellow monk. It was nice. It was so epic. It was so fun, and it made the game great. And I still beat you.
I know. That's what I mean. I got to brag whenever I do beat you.
even though you killed my monk.
Yeah. Wasn't me, it was the famine.
Now, have you played Altiplano too?
We have not.
No.
So I'm kind of seeing like what people's opinion are between the two because I've only played Orleans.
We haven't. Is that a game about alpacas?
Yes.
Yes.
If it counts, we actually have blankets that are made from alpaca fur that we got from Ecuador.
We can wrap ourselves in the alpaca blankets as we play Orleans.
So, right.
Yeah, that's the only way it counts.
That
It's the only way it counts.
Okay, my first game on the list is probably going to get, we'll see. Because it's technically not a board game, it's a miniatures game, but it's the game that introduced me into the hobby. Not introduced me into the hobby, I shouldn't say it that way, but back in 2018 when we got into the hobby side of it. You know, we've always had board games and played them, but it's from Fantasy Flight Games. The first edition was published in 2012, and the second edition came out in 2018, and it's Star Wars X-Wing. I know it's not technically a board game, but I always look at it as a board game. You get the 3x3 mat out and roll dice, and I played all the time with a store owner. Back then, I had one day a week that you were working, Lexi was working, and I would go play. And the store owner, when the store wasn't busy, he would get out his ships and play with me, and it was awesome. And as far as a two-player game is concerned, I even taught you the second edition. Yeah, and it really changed the game up. I don't get into the competitive side of it. That's probably where it's more of a miniatures game. I still look at it as a board game. I'd rather just play it, with friends and family casually. But it is super fun. Anytime you can just pull out 2 TIE fighters and an X-Wing and just fly around and shoot each other. And I'm not a great dice roller, I gotta be honest. The dice always work against me, but when you can outfly your opponent, even if you're rolling badly, that's a good feeling. It always gave me such a good feeling, even if I lost, if I flew well. So that game is just fantastic, and it's fiddly, it is fiddly. There's a lot of weird rules, and you have to have the laser finder to see where you're shooting and if you're in range and all these different things, a lot of measuring going on. That is very much like a miniatures game, but I don't know, it just gave me that feeling that very few two-player games at least will do. Now you can play with more people. There's actually a lot of fan-created content out there. Heroes of the Aturi Cluster is a very popular module that you can download, and you can actually play with more players than just 2. But I think it just plays best with 2. You can just pull out a couple of ships and dogfight. It's super fun. So that's my first game.
Yeah, I love that game. I love that game a lot. So for you, Peter, or anyone that shows up, I donated it to the board game library. So
I'm excited.
The issue for me is we played it a lot, and sort of when they went to the second edition, I started, and that sort of killed it for me because the ships they were coming out with are just so much better than everything that I have.
Yeah.
So it gets into that Philly portion where my ships, even with the upgraded cards and stuff, weren't quite making it. So like the new Forced Order ships were really powerful and stuff, but it is an awesome game. I agree. We're Tabletop Gaming Guild, so it's all good.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So is this one then that you, as they come out with newer stuff, you're continually buying? Like,
you don't have to.
You don't have to, but you can.
My suggestion would be not to. My suggestion would be they have starter packs.
Yeah.
And I think the starter pack comes with like 2 TIE fighters and an X-Wing.
Yep.
Yeah.
You could get one of those and you'd be good. Or you can get like 2 of them, or you can get like a couple. Don't go nuts. If you try to keep in the same things, they'll be pretty well balanced, so you don't have to worry about too much.
Well, I like miniature games. I think they look like a lot of fun. And then it's Star Wars and dogfighting, which I used to love playing dogfighting video games. So I think it'd be a lot of fun to try to play something at a table at some point. I've been to some cons and seen people play stuff like this and just have never done it myself. But that sounds awesome.
It is a rabbit hole. There's really the miniatures are painted well for pre-painted miniatures, and they're for the most part to scale, and you can get some big ships in there.
Yeah. And the second edition really did improve the game. I have the first edition, most of my content's first edition, and it got so bloated with the rules that some of the little cards had walls of text on them just to explain what they were doing. So the second edition conversion, so I actually got the conversion kits. So my first edition stuff works in second edition, which was a great thing that they did, Fantasy Flight. But the second edition is it's app driven. So a lot of the points that you're building is done on the app, and you have a minimal set of things that are out here on the table and minimal text there because they tweak the rules within the app. And I think that makes it demonstrably better certainly for tournament play, but even for casual play, it's a lot improved that way, I think.
And for casual play, it's really cool to put like asteroids out and stuff. Yep. And we had little foam box that we set up and painted them to look like asteroids and remove them. So it was a lot of fun. We did the Death Star trench. Yeah, you could do a lot of cool stuff.
I'm in the minority here, but I didn't particularly like it. any game where once you pull out those measuring sticks, I lose interest.
So that's the benefit.
Like I was back with my protractor. Like I don't know. It made me feel like I love math. So it was kind of fun. I only played it once, so I really can't talk much to it, but it was fun.
Have you done Star Wars Armada at all?
No, I haven't played that one. Well, once I got into X-Wing, I kind of focused on, going that direction because Armada's another sinkhole.
Yeah,
it's another rat hole. In fact, at our local game store, they have the Super Star Destroyer. It's like $100 and some dollars. They have it sitting there for Armada. It's this big. It's as big as the Title Blades box back here. It's huge, and they haven't sold it yet. So
it's a thing. That thing's probably 1 billion points.
Yep.
So depending, it's not 1 billion points, but it's a lot of points.
Yeah.
But I like Armada has that drift.
Mm-hmm.
So the ships are so large that you have to deal with inertia,
mm-hmm.
and you have to deal with not being able to stop your ship, and you have to deal with setting commands and delays.
Yeah.
So if you have know anyone with the game, I would suggest give it a play. But it's a rabbit hole, so don't buy it.
Yeah, the Star Trek one has that ridiculous Borg cube that just is a giant square. It's like that's a lot of money for a square.
Yeah, and it doesn't even light up.
Nope. But I've seen people that made it light up.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, it's amazing.
Cool.
They cut it out and made it look like the board ship where you could see like the scaffolding and stuff.
Oh, wow.
So Dan, what's yours?
All right. The first game I think I'm going to mention is sort of an oldie but a goodie. I'm going to mention the game Nexus Ops. Nexus Ops is a dudes on a map style game. There's a little bit of like area control. There's a little bit of like resource management since like there are mines that give you rubium, which allow you to buy more units. But it really works well, I mean, in general, not even mind a two-player game because of the way the objective cards work. The first person to reach 12 points wins, and you can have an objective card in your hand that's worth like 3 points if you just do a little thing. Well, not a little thing. It's the ones that worth 3 are actually kind of difficult. But like there could be pretty big swings in that game. I've had turns where I try for a point and fail, and then there are turns that I just win one battle. That's it, and that one battle I'm somehow able to play like 3 cards off of it and get like 4 points. So
but yeah, Nexus Ops is a game that I've always wanted to play. It looks amazing on the board, and I think that one has the glow in the dark pieces.
I'm sorry, that's the first edition.
Oh, okay, that's still amazing. When you play with the lights out, but whatever. It looks really cool. There's a lot of pictures of it. Yeah, here it is. There's a lot of pictures of it with the glow in the dark miniatures. But yeah, it looks like a really cool game. Okay, so I'm going to move on to my next game, and I also like a lot of Euros. This one here is sort of a mixed game, and that is Stone Age. I love Stone Age 2-player. Stone Age is a wonderful game. It scales really well down to 2 players. And basically in the game, what you're trying to do is get the, what are they called, technology cards. And you're trying to gain huts. And you're just trying to get the most points by the end of the game. As soon as the technology cards run out, the game's over. It's pretty fast. There is dice rolling in it, but you can mitigate it with hatchets. And you do a balance between getting your workers, which the more workers you have, the more food you have to pay, and building up your agriculture to start paying for those workers. There's a lot of really cool things happening in the game, and I like the extra little randomness in it. I like the fact that it can be mitigated. It's super easy to teach. So my wife and I used to play all the time and got to the point where we actually stopped playing it because we ran into a different game I'll talk about later. But when we tried to introduce people to the game, it's really hard to turn that off. Be like, okay, I'm trying not to win right now, sort of thing. But yeah, Stone Age. It's awesome.
We have the anniversary edition that has the double-sided map.
Yep.
We got the expansion for it too, so we have all the content for Stone Age. We love the
We
game.
need to play it
We
again.
love it.
Yeah.
And you're right. Just to echo what James said, I taught this to my parents, and they're in their mid-70s, and they loved it, and it was very easy for them to pick that up. And they're pinochle players, right? My parents they're card players, from that generation.
Yeah.
So to put something like this on the table, it's a pretty daunting thing. It plays well at 3 then too. It was my parents that played it, but then you and I played it a couple of times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're right, it is hard to pull back. There's so many ways, and you're like, well, it's great.
Yeah, I find it hard when I'm playing with other people not to trash the multi-huts, the ones that let you score all the gold for the huts and stuff. I'm like, I can't let people have those for some reason. I'm just mean, I guess.
Well, she's very clever. She's a better player than she lets on, Lexi. And
Yet you always win.
It's not for lack. I don't know. I get lucky at it sometimes, but she goes for those huts too, and boy, she makes me sweat when we play all the time. Yeah, very much.
I will say that I heard the second editions they have that leather cup in it too.
Yes,
yeah.
They have.
It smells really badly.
It does.
Like the first edition. Oh my gosh. You think they would correct that for the second edition?
No, it smells. It's pretty stinky. But it's real leather, I guess, so who knows I don't know what kind of animal they got it from, but yeah, it's pretty...
That was the one thing I was like, why? But yeah.
We actually got away with a fairly decent-sized stretch of podcast without mentioning the smell of that stuffed egg cup.
I always have to bring it up every time. I'm just like, this thing is awful. I even tried like polyurethane it or spraying it with like not polyurethane, but that waterproofing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, didn't work. All right, Peter.
So my second game for 2-player, I enjoy a good war game, and one that I have been able to play that I really enjoyed, I've mentioned previously, is called Hammer of the Scots, and this is a war game. I think the reason this one resonated for me so well was I was like at the perfect age when Braveheart came out and just fell in love with the movie and the story. And so when I found out that there was a war game that I could sit down and play with a friend that was kind of reenacting the Scottish Rebellion, and if you were the Scots, you could have William Wallace as one of your leaders on the board and Robert the Bruce, and the idea of the game being that it's Scotland versus England, and one player is the English and the other is the Scottish, and you're controlling. If you're Scotland, you're definitely kind of outnumbered at the beginning, but as you play through, you can win, and in winning, change the alliance of some of the English nobles to your side, winning over their allegiance to your rebellion, and kind of grow your army that way. It is dice rolling, and dice rolling isn't always fantastic for me either, but I found it to be a lot of fun. And as who grew up playing Stratego as like an early game, it had a little bit of that feel because you've got your cubes out there and only you can see what's on your side until it's time to reveal to each other who's fighting who. And so getting to play that one was a lot of fun. It's one that I personally would love to add to my collection. And James and I noticed the other day it's recently been digitized on Steam actually. And so I'm looking at possibly picking that up at some point and getting to play it on Steam with some friends. So, but yeah, Hammer of the Scots, if you want to play the Scottish Rebellion and you're into war games, it's a really good game.
Yeah, I definitely will play that with you. When you mentioned at the one podcast, I actually looked up a lot of the PSC games.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really ones out there.
Nice. Peter, do you like the Command and Colors put out? It was kickstarted. It was really quiet but it's the Command and Color system for like Ancients and Memoir and all that, but it's the Scottish and the English.
Oh,
so
sweet.
A little bit of a lighter game, I think, because Command and Colors isn't, but it has the left, center, and right kind of sections of the board, and you're playing cards and you can activate those units. So
okay,
yeah, just as a thought, if you like that theme and you like war games, it's probably a little lighter war game. But
no, I'll definitely look into that one.
Yeah, I really like that Command and Color system. I liked it for Memoir 44, and Battlelore did it too.
So I'm gonna get my cheatery out early in this episode, so I'm gonna talk about an entire series of games.
Cheating!
Well, I'm talking about the Unlocked series of games. So basically escape room games. I prefer Unlocked over, say, Exit because it's replayable. So like once I played it, I can pass it off to somebody else. I can pass it off to James. He can play it with his kids. And it is app dependent. So there's that. If you don't like apps too much, you might not enjoy this as much as Exit. But I do really like it. I would say you want to play this with 2 or 3. I wouldn't necessarily want to go with more than that because you're kind of trying to solve puzzles in this, and there's a limit to how many people can see a specific card and actually work on a single puzzle at a time. So you get a large group, you're going to kind of be fighting over who gets to look at which cards. But the base mechanic of this game is you're looking around, you get cards that reveal rooms, and in those rooms you're searching. So you're looking for numbers and looking for other numbers to combine those with. So you'll find like a wrench, and later on you'll find maybe a kitchen sink, and you can use the wrench of the kitchen sink by combining the 2 numbers, and that'll tell you a card to reveal. And sometimes those will direct you to the app where you have little puzzles that you can solve in the app itself. But the important thing on the app really makes this a better game, in my opinion, than Exit is you can get hints from the app if you're really stuck. So that's why I chose the Unlock series.
Cool. All right, so my next game is one that we just love playing at 2 players, obviously. Rajas of the Ganges. And I love we both love this, so if it's on your list, I'm sorry. The 2 different tracks, the Wealth and the Fame tracks, and how they intersect, and then you have to time it correctly, and you're rolling dice, and you're putting your dice in the different areas and deciding what you want to do. Again, it's a game where there's just so many different ways to gain points, and it always seems like you roll what I want to roll, and the different color dice and everything like that. I just love it. But that track mechanism, I've never seen that in any other game before, and it's really awesome that triggers the end of the game. And again, I always seem to lose, but I have a lot of fun losing to you.
Well, it's one of those games where, because there's technically two victory point tracks, you have your Wealth and your Fame, overemphasize one over the other, and that's what triggers the end of the game. But you only win by the difference between the two. So the final score can be very, very, very close. It's a super balanced game.
Yeah.
And it's a province. Have you guys played it?
I played it once, and I love that the 2 tracks hitting, because it seems like if one of them goes too far, it still sort of keeps the difference.
It does.
Fairly well. So they had an expansion that was coming out for it too.
They do. We actually got the goodies box number 1, and now they have goodie box number 2 coming out, but it's not released, but it is coming. They're modules, so you can just plug in whichever modules you want. So you have to look it up, but we haven't played with any of the modules yet because we haven't gotten it back to the table. But it's not on my list.
Oh,
because I figured it would be on yours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, we could have worked with the same list probably, but
yeah.
Okay, so my next game I think is Lexi's list too. It's a flip and write, and it's our only flip and write. We have a couple of roll and write games. We have Railroad Inc. and a couple other ones. We've kind of warmed up to this, but Cartographers by Thunderworks is fantastic. When somebody says, do you want to play a roll and write or a flip and write, this is the game that I want to play. I actually played it with my 10-year-old son, and he enjoyed it just as much, and we have colored we laminated the boards or the papers, and we have color dry erase markers for it, to really make it pop. And what I love about it, are the seasons, but then how the scoring is varied each game. There's so much variability. We actually got a miniature expansion. I think Board Game Geek has it. It's the skills. It's just a little stack of cards, but it's they're one-time skills that you can use like once per game.
Really varies it up.
Wow, and it's like a power that only you get to use, and they're randomized too. So it adds a lot of variability to the game. In fact, I guess we could say this too. They just kickstarted Heroes, and we back that. I think the Pledge Manager is coming out very soon for that, but it's going to add even more to the game, and I think I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, the Cartographers, I don't know. I like the fantasy theme. I like the fact that inside that deck of symbols and rivers and mountains and forests and all that you're drawing, monsters get shuffled into the deck as well, like kobolds and orcs. And when they get pulled, you have to pass your board to the left around the table, and your opponents are drawing the monster polyomino. No, it's fantastic because now you have to manage that, because every side of that monster polyomino that has been drawn, the shape that's been drawn, is -1 point each round that it stays like that. So now you're scrambling to change your focus and try to kill the monster. Yeah. It's not really a thematic game, but it does have something. It has a flavor.
It does it so well, and I prefer it over the roll and write. And I really think that it's a good family game because you get to draw monsters. I mean, what kid doesn't want to draw monsters on their parents' boards? Like, I love it. I think it's so cool. Yeah, good pick.
Yeah, Blake had a great time drawing monsters on Daddy's board.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So just imagine those monsters reproduce and make more monsters or move around on your board. Then you have Cartographer Heroes.
That's right. That's what it does. Yeah.
So, I mean, you have ways to counteract that a little better, but so
it's hardcore.
So it's a lot more strategy when you write monsters on other people's boards, and there's a lot more mitigation on your part to get rid of them.
Cool.
It looks amazing. You made Dan very happy, I know.
I mean, it's in my collection, and yeah, it's a good game.
I've gotten to play it. We played it together on Tabletop Simulator at one point. I've not actually been able to play where you actually do the writing portion because it's on Tabletop Simulator, so they've got everything kind of like Tetris piece where you like lay it on there. But I really enjoyed that game a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we've never played anything from that universe. We haven't played Role Player, which that's another one that I really want to play. And we have not played Lockup, which I think is in that Role Player universe. So
Yeah.
this has given us a good feel for that universe because Cartographers is really well done. Good production too.
I think that a lot of race games are good two-player games. If the arc of the game is done well, the game is ending at a point where someone's the winner, but the other people aren't far behind. So my pick is Istanbul. Istanbul is a worker movement game where you're moving around a market trading resources, trying to get rubies. The game is won by very narrow margins because you only need 5 or 6 rubies to win. So it's usually some number of turns between the winner and like the last player. And usually this number of turns is like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's really tight. And I think it's really well done.
Making me change my list. Why?
I love that game.
Yes.
What I like is you don't win by victory points. I love games where the things you need to win are out there in front of you teasing you. I think that game, at all player counts, by the way, I think it works super well.
Yeah, and you're it is always like, oh, if I just had one more turn.
Yeah.
But, well.
Even without expansions, the fact that board is modular and you can change all those tiles around makes it different every single time. I like the fact that you can have 3 different difficulty levels preset, so I like that too. But yeah, it's a good pick. Darn you, Dan. So I'm going to pick on Dan some more because that's what I love to do. And I'm going to talk about the greatest Euro game ever, which also happens to be
This is where I go to sleep, right?
Yeah, this is which happens to be an awesome 2-player game. I don't know if a lot of people have tried it 2 players, but it's amazing 2 players, and that is Agricola.
Oh, we haven't played that yet.
Agricola is a super tight Euro where you are trying to maximize points, but in reality, you're trying to mitigate point loss in the game. You can get a max of 4 points for every category, and the goal in the game is to try to not lose points and try to gain points in those areas. So it's one of the games that gets a lot of flack for having to feed your people, but it is a major mechanic in the game. So once you go through a game or two and you understand that is actually what you're fighting against in the game, is the ability to mitigate point loss and not necessarily point gain. We're trying to do that, but the first point is you have to not lose points. So I love it for the fact that it's super tight. I like it for the fact that a 2-player, the game, we go through games with my wife in 30 minutes.
Wow.
It just blows through the game. There's 3 different decks of cards to play with. So I would suggest if you went into it, it's a game that you play a lot. So the first time you play the family edition or family. The second time you play it, you play regular. And all the other times you put the cards in. If you can't complete the game without a decent amount of coverage on your board, don't go into the cards yet because it just get worse. Person that can will crush at that point. But I love playing that with my wife. My wife is super competitive with Agricola. Just amazing and awesome.
We haven't played any of these Felds, or are they Uves? Uwe Rose.
Yeah.
So I guess question, we've heard so many opinions in our gaming group. Caverna, a lot of people think Caverna's better than Agricola. And then there's people that think Feast for Odin takes both of those. So what is your opinion then? If we don't own any of them, which we don't, what would you suggest? I know Agricola for you, James, but...
Yeah, I will say they're different styles of games, even though they're the same idea. It's all polynomial management style game. But Agricola is more is the harsh version.
Oh, okay.
And with Agricola is a challenge from your first game to your last game. There is no game or Agricola where you're like, I was able to like dominate everything. And there's a lot of things you can do to tank another player a little bit. So there's a lot of push and pull in it. Caverna divorced that a little bit. So it's more into maximizing your own area. There is less player interaction, but there's still some. So there's less player action with Caverna, and then there's even less with Feast for Odin. But when they went up there, they went more into the polynomial management. So if you like Baron Park, Patchwork, or games like that, probably going to go more on the Feast for Odin side. Agricola doesn't really have that.
Okay.
Caverna does, and definitely Feast for Odin.
Yeah, personally, I've been known on this podcast to say I'm sick of Uwe, but no, I did play all of them a lot when they first came out. Once I played Agricola a lot, but once I played Caverna, I kind of stopped playing Agricola, mainly because Agricola has more board management. And I'm the one always stuck with that duty, so that's kind of why I prefer Caverna.
Don't make Nathan work. Don't make him work. He doesn't want to do it. He's here to play games, not
Especially
work.
when you're playing games, right? Especially when you're playing games.
I'm always the table manager, too, I think. I have long arms, so
Yeah.
I'm the crane of the group.
Yeah, I was the refiller of all goods, so that's why my wife and my daughters liked it so much, because I refilled everything for them all the time.
So my next game is one that I was able to get a couple of the 2-person boxes, and then I found out that like it was selling out and you can't get it anywhere anymore. And that is Combo Fighter, which is a 2-person card rendition of your arcade Street Fighter game. So if you're Mortal Kombat or Tekken, or if you're into any of those fighter games, then Combo Fighter is your card-based version of that, and it's a blast. They use a very rock, paper, scissors style play where, if you play a card, a block beats an attack, and an attack beats a dodge. I can't remember exactly. It's been a little bit since I played it now, because I gave a box to a friend, and I kept a box. And so I've just got the same 2 fighters now. And once you kind of learn their styles, I'm like, I want to play all the other decks so I can play with these different fighting styles, because each one leans into a different style of fighting. But the fun part for me is that it's flipping easy to learn it. It's really fast. And then your actual fighting, the round is you're done playing in like 10, 15 minutes. Then you can switch decks, let somebody else play one of the other fighters. But like I said, I think it was maybe kickstarted at one point, and then they've not done any reprinting since the last I heard. So I've just got 2 decks for myself and 2 decks that a friend of mine has, and then there was a whole other like 4 decks other than that, and I can't get hold of any of them. So that is a game though that I really, really enjoyed and would love to have the opportunity to play more often. And it just, again, it was very well streamlined. So if I loved fighter games growing up, so that was mine.
Yeah, I believe they had 2 pushes for that game. The first one did okay, and then the second one didn't do so well. So that's probably where that. But I mean, it's a great game. I don't know why it didn't take off.
Yeah,
like it should have. But it happens.
Last I heard, there was there was going to be maybe somebody who was going to purchase the rights for it and then try to redo it, and then I just didn't hear anything. So, but yeah, it's if you've got a copy out there or you find one, it's definitely one that I would say it's worth picking up, because it's a lot of fun.
Like I said, again, you probably want to try Unmatched in the meantime. Unmatched
Right.
is amazing. I mean, when can you play again? Robin Hood versus Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I've been hearing really good things about Unmatched, so that's on my list for sure.
So I don't play a ton of 2-player game. I almost exclusively play 3-player. So because of that, I'm already kind of have to go for the obvious choices, but they're fairly obvious choices for a reason. So I feel okay with that. 7 Wonders Duel would be, I think, one of the most obvious choices in this category. It's really popular. There you go. Obviously, it was on Brandon's list. But 7 Wonder Duel takes drafting mechanic, which I'm usually not a huge fan of, but it works well in this game because it doesn't really have much hidden information. So all the things you're drafting they're visible for both players to see. There are a couple hidden cards that are revealed when you draft a specific card, then the 2 cards under it will flip over. But that's fairly nominal. You know that you're going to be unlocking something that's potentially good for them. The other cool thing about this game is there's 3 ways of winning, if I'm not mistaken. You can win by just, get to the end of the game and you go by points, but there's 2 instant win factors, which is win by military power or win by science, which military power is basically a tug of war. As you gain military power, the opponent has to kind of make sure they build up their military power to pull you back. So that, as long as you're paying attention, that's not going to happen. If that does happen, that's just kind of your fault that you let that happen.
I've beaten Lexi 2 out of 3 times. I beat her once with science, once with military. I cannot beat her on points. I can't.
Yeah.
She's way better than me on the points, and it's the luck of the draft. She gets all the resources. The card that I need is the one I flip over, and then she takes it.
There's been some very stressful games between us two, but this was the first 2-player game that we played. We played it before 7 Wonders, and so then when we first played 7 Wonders, I was like, oh, I like 7 Wonders Duel way better, and I still feel that way because I don't know. I like how you have to lay out the drafting cards and the different designs and stuff. I don't know what that's called.
Each age is different,
but
which is cool.
It's such a good 2-player game, even though there's so much luck in it. There really is. I mean, you can see the cards, but when you flip those ones over, and you can't do anything if another person takes it and they take all the good. Like the one time I beat you so badly, and I felt really bad because I felt really bad, and I couldn't help it because I just was getting lucky with the cards that were being turned over.
I literally scored like 6 points. I mean,
it was bad.
That's work. That's work to score 6 points in 7 Wonders Founders Duel. I mean, I did, it was unbelievable. And the thing is, what is great though about that game, the push and pull, is if you do have money, you can pay to use the resources of the other person's city, which is great. But I couldn't get money either.
Yeah,
so I was
bad.
in trouble. What do you think, Nathan, about the expansions, the Pantheon and the new one that's coming that they just announced?
Yeah, I played the Pantheon. I do like it. It's been a little while since I played it, so you'd have to jog my memory on how that worked.
It's the deities come out. It adds like a board above the main board. It kind of slots in, and there's deities that come out. And in the first age, you're courting them. In the second age, I forget what you do, but then in the third age is the only time that you actually get to use their power, and it's a variable player power setup. And the new expansion's not out yet, but we want to get it. But it's turning itself into a big game for just a 2-player game. Which some people like that, some people don't. But the expansions, I think, are really thematic and really cool.
Yeah, I think they work really well in the sense that this is a game you can play a huge number of times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then after you've played it a huge number of times, you need to change it up.
Yeah.
So that's where the expansions comes in. I wouldn't if you played it once or twice, I wouldn't add the expansions yet.
Right.
I would make sure you play this 20, 30 times, and then you add the expansions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on my top 10 list of most frustrating games. I love it. I love it as much as it frustrates me. And that's what makes a great game, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. I'm not a big fantasy themed gamer either, so my next choice is kind of funny because I'm always asking to play this game and we haven't played it for a while, so I think we need to. But Aeon's End, I love this game. I love cooperative games, and I loved the deck builder.
Yeah.
But I loved what are they called? The little portal things
The breaches
that you have to turn, and you have to time everything correctly. And then the turn order kind of switches up as you're fighting the big baddies when they come out. And it's just really cool how you have to really work with one another to defeat these big monsters that are coming out. And I found myself getting that feeling of playing D&D sort of. I don't know, just that exhilarate feeling when you're fighting in this game. And it played very well 2 players. So
yeah, mechanically what I like about it too, it's a deck builder, but you never shuffle your deck.
Yes.
So it's one of those deck builders where you can either put things on the bottom or put things in a certain order when you buy a card. So there's a lot of manipulation that you can do with your deck, but you never shuffle it. When you're ready, when you're out of cards to pull, you flip it over, and what's on the bottom is now on the top. It's so clever.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I knew this was going to be on your list.
Yeah.
I knew it. Yeah, we do have to play it again. It's really good.
I like the art on it a lot too.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Actually,
cool.
We want some of the expansions. One of the, I think Wizards War, but it's the same price as the base game. So we haven't purchased that one yet, but yeah, it adds a lot of cards. Okay, so the third game that I'm going to mention is a game that is on your list, but you're letting me talk about it. Thank you, Lexi. It's a game published originally by Cosmos in 2012. They just published the expansion. It actually came out in 2016, but it just got published in English this year, and that is Targi. Targi is fantastic. It is probably the game we have played the most to play far. It is it's a Euro game. It is not thematic at all. But it doesn't even matter, and the expansion has actually made the game better for us because it adds a little bit more of a mechanic. It's a little card game, and you have 16 border cards, and there's a robber that's moving. That's your round tracker, and the robber moves, and each spot that he moves to from 1 to 16 around the board, he blocks, and you can't put your worker there. And each player has 3 workers, and you're playing like a game of columns and rows. So where you put your worker, that is now that whole row. If you put it on a row, that's blocked. The player can't be on the same row as you, so that blocks the other end of the card. And you're fighting for cards that are in the middle, either tribe cards or good cards. The goods, they give you the things you need to purchase the tribe cards. So you're fighting over goods to be able to purchase the tribe cards, and the tribe cards, you're building a tableau in front of you. First player to get 12 cards triggers the end of the game. All the tribe cards do all sorts of different things for scoring, and it is super, super fun. Very Euro-y. And then basically, I didn't finish explaining the workers. So once you're all done placing your workers, where they intersect, you put a little action marker, and that's the card that you get to take. And ways to mitigate that, there's ways that you can move the action token using one of the border cards. The expansion adds sand dunes which are more powerful effects, but you have to place your worker over there, so you lose an action in the center of the main board. So you have to kind of weigh that. Oh, it is
And
by
water,
far.
too. Doesn't it add water?
It adds water as a resource. Yeah, the
Yeah.
expansion. It is wonderful. It's a great game. It's a small box game from Cosmos. I think it's the best one in their 2-player line. I haven't played them all, but I think it's one of their best. I'd highly recommend it. It's very inexpensive. It's easily accessible, and get the expansion with it too, because it actually changes the game. It doesn't just add more stuff. It changes the game.
Yeah, but I would say just like
Base
how
game is
Nathan
great
said,
enough. Yeah.
play the base game a while before you add the
Play the-
expansion, because it gives it new flavor. It really does. I like it.
Yeah, love it.
Good.
This one's been on my list for I think a couple months now, because I was watching an episode of Our Family Plays Games.
Yep.
And they mentioned it recently, and it seemed like something that I never would have even thought about, I guess. But like you're talking about, the way that the game is laid out with the cards, and I really enjoy the worker placement style of game, but the ability to block like even more of the board from the players rather than just the thing that you're putting on just made it sound strategically so much more than any worker placement that I'd played before. So I'm glad to get another group of people out here endorsing it, because it's one that's definitely been on my list for a bit, and I actually had it typed up as 2-player game that I would like to play. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. That
it's
again,
essential.
it's not my number one on my list, but I think as a couple we play that one more than any other 2-player game in our collection.
Yeah.
It's that good.
Yeah.
So I guess the next one I'm going to mention is another co-op game, actually. I feel like there's actually a lot of co-op games out there that scale, and as co-op games are usually want to do, can divvy up tasks when there's, a couple players at the table. Usually when I'm playing this particular game 2-player, somebody is advancing the victory point condition and the other person is just putting out fires. Not literal fires, because the game is actually Fortune and Glory. I'm going to go with the biggest, awesomest 2-player co-op game in my collection, of course. So I've mentioned it before on the channel, but for those of you who might not have heard, Fortune and Glory is a gigantic thematic mess of a game that is Indiana Jones in a box, where you're going on these artifact adventures, you're trying to reclaim these artifacts from these sites, you're navigating dangers, and in the co-op version, you're fighting against a vile organization out of the base game that's either the mob or the Nazi menace.
It is 100% Indiana Jones in a box.
Yeah, it's 100% Indiana Jones.
I don't need to know anything else.
It actually
That's
says that on Board Game Geek. It says, feel like Indiana Jones on the hunt for ancient artifacts around the world. I never heard of it until now.
That sounds
Right.
fun.
That box cover is audacious and fantastic.
The game does use photographs of real people for its art, which it has gotten some flack for, but it's like a perfect, it's a perfect pulp game too. Like if you want to sink yourself into some pulp, like you can narrate what your character is doing in that voice of the 1950s radio announcer.
Yeah. Well, that sounds fun.
We gotta play this at some point, because when I first heard of this game, I thought, okay, this is a game that I'm gonna either love this game or absolutely hate it. And the more you talk about it, the more I think, okay, this is gonna be the game I love.
You do have to accept going into it that sometimes it can be a dice fest, which is a plus for me for this particular game. In the co-op version at 2 players, we have had games where somebody is rolling crap the entire game, and the other player manages to carry the game.
Yeah, that sounds.
So the one
enticing.
with the bad dice rolling is causing the fire, not literal fire, and the one rolling well is putting out the fires. Got it.
Okay, so I'm going to be my second favorite 2-player game of all time is going to be Five Tribes. Five Tribes is an amazing 2-player game. You do have to like the Mancala mechanism in the game, which is you're going to pick up a grouping of meeples and you drop one off in each location, and the last meeple you place down has to match a color of that location. Each of the meeples in the game gives a different ability. Each of the locations you drop off at can give different abilities or give you points or build monasteries. And the whole point of the game is to either get points through the places you claim or the genies that you can purchase, and you get a couple points for some of the meeples that you keep. But the main points in the game is putting your camel animals down, to secure locations on the board. It's a very thinky game, and what happens is in the beginning, there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of things. And the one negative thing I'll say about the game is when you get towards the end, what you decide at the very end determines whether you win or not. If you make a mistake at the end, you probably didn't win. So it's a nice battle all the way up to the end, and then you sit there, and I know my wife would sit there for like 15 minutes straight trying to think how to move, because when you get down to the end, you can push it a little further. So what that gets into is when you can push it so that you get an opportunity where you can get a place, or a lot of times you can push it to prevent any more opportunity, because the game ends when you can't move anything. So you have to balance out getting more points versus what did I give you? Plus there's a bidding mechanic that's super important in the game, that if you don't get down well, it can cost you the game, which is you have to bid for your turn place every round. Starting with the player who was first, which is the disadvantage for bidding, because you select an amount on a track, you put your pawn there, and then the next player selects an amount and puts their pawn there. And the furthest up goes, and it goes right to left.
It's on our list. We've never played it.
You should definitely play it. I think you'd like it.
It's Gatala, right, Bruno?
Yeah, Bruno Gatala.
Yeah, we like his games. We have Abyss, and we love Abyss too. So.
Oh, Abyss. I forgot about that. That was an amazing game. I love Abyss.
It actually plays very well. Player not on my list.
It does.
Yeah, it does really well too.
The only thing I wish they didn't do is the pearl thing, because they fly everywhere.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
But the expansion's amazing for it too.
And I finally got my hands on Leviathan. It wasn't in print in English for a long, long time, and they finally brought it out. I got it. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely give Five Tribes a go. It's a really good game. If you like it, if you're into any sort of abstract strategy, it's definitely in the higher level of the abstract strategy.
Yeah. So. Fistful of Meeples does that, picking up and dropping off around the Mancala. Yeah, if you've never played that one.
I played that one too.
Yeah.
This one I think is a lot better than that game.
Yeah, it's bigger.
But yeah, it gives you more opportunities. Like it literally is, if you are both evenly matched, it gets down to the end of the game. It gets down to those last couple decisions.
So my next one is one that I've definitely mentioned before on the show, but I can't talk about two-player games and not mention it. Is Jaipur. I'm looking over my list and I'm like, yeah, so 3 out of my 4 have been card games as well. So I apparently have a thing for two-player card games. Jaipur is, trading and selling goods to become the most wealthy merchant. It's two-player, as we've been talking about, and it is incredibly quick to play. You do 3 rounds. Each round's going to take you maybe 10 minutes to play. So you've got a good 30 minutes that you're going to be playing this game, and it goes by super fast, but it's another one where there's just the right level of strategy involved as you're trying to figure out when to trade and when to sell your goods to try to get the most points by the end of each round. And again, it's best 2 out of 3. So if you win the first 2 rounds, the game's over. So you don't have to play that 3rd round. It's very well done. It's one that I couldn't personally find anything that I didn't like about it as I played it. My wife, and I guess I could see if you played it a ton, you might eventually get over it or put it away for a while. But since I don't get to play games a ton, I have yet to have played it too much. So it's an easy one to teach and learn. So it's another one of those, when we get to the point that we're able to sit down around the table with a whole bunch of people, I can see myself taking this with me to work and just sitting down with a coworker over a lunch and teaching it to them and playing at some point. So it's just a really fun game. Jaipur.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about one of the older deck builders. And I get a lot of flack for the games I choose for them being completely ugly. And this is definitely one of them, at least the first edition, which is Ascension. I mean, the card art on that is very inconsistent. And some of them are a little bit garish, I guess you would call it, to be the right word. But the mechanic is nice and simple. You have the cards in front of you that everybody can buy. You can buy with either spending power or combat to fight monsters. And you have, the generic cards that you can buy if you can't get any of the things from the available cards. And you're just kind of building up your buy power and, adding to your deck. The thing that makes this game good is the way they've supported it. They keep on doing new versions of Ascension that you can mix in. And each time they do a new version, they're adding 1, maybe 2 rules, so it's not adding a huge amount. It's easy to learn the new rules. If you've already played the base version, the next version is going to take you at most 5 minutes to learn. It's fast to pick up, and each new edition adds something interesting.
I think Tom Vassell described the first edition artwork of Ascension as done by a high schooler.
He did. And
I
it's
remember.
right.
I think
Sounds about right.
I remembered that correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad, very bad.
Definitely improved as it just goes, though. Can't get worse.
All right, my next game is a worker placement game, which I really, really love. And I was going to do two, but maybe you can help me talk about one, and I'll talk about the other one. These are Shem Phillips games, Architects of the West Kingdom and Paladins in the West Kingdom. I love both of them so much, and they play really well at two. I'll talk about Architects because we just played that one recently with the Age of Artisans expansion, and it was so good. I love the expansion. So in Architects, you start with all of your workers, and you're placing them on different places to do things to get resources. You're building buildings. You're also constructing a cathedral, and then you have, what's the victory point track over here?
Valor.
Valor.
Yeah, I think it's your valor or reputation.
Something like that. I forget what it is. But the bad thing is the black market that you have to deal with, and then also the other player taking, what is that called when you take all of the players
As you place workers, the action you're doing at that spot gets better. And so the more workers you put, for example, in the forest, the more wood you're getting each turn. And so when your workers get too populated, you can go to the town hall and round them up. You basically arrest them, and then you can drop them off in prison and get paid for it.
You can arrest yourselves.
Well, you don't really. Yeah, you bring your workers home that way too.
But you have to take an action to do that. So and the Age of Artisans expansion, it added a lot to the game.
The tools. It added tools and the artisans.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Loved it at two players.
We've played, the first game we played of Architects was a 5-player game at a charity event. We didn't know the other 3 players. We sat down, and it was super fun. It took a lot longer, of course.
Yeah.
But it was really good. But it plays just as well at 2. And balancing that tension of putting people, because if you have people in jail and you don't go release them from the prison, which is the big mechanism that changes it a lot in that game from just standard worker placement. When the black market resets happens, which can happen a couple of ways. There's the guild hall can do it, and then the black market can do it. You get debt cards if you have the most people in prison at that moment, so there's a lot of when people start rounding your workers up and then putting them in prison, it changes the flow of your focus, and that is what makes it so good. And then Paladins, I was going to talk about Paladins, but I'd rather mix it because I was going to put Raiders of the North Sea. I mean, we love Shem Phillips.
Yeah, that's a really good one too.
His games play so well at 2. We just played Raiders.
All Shem Phillips games.
And Viscounts is coming up, and we've got Viscounts on reserve, so we want Viscounts as well. But anyway, Paladins is similar, but Paladins is definitely a lot more thinky. It's more Euro than Architects. It still does worker placement, but it's changing the color of workers. It has that whole mechanism, sort of like Orleans, where a certain color combination of workers gives you something else that you pull off your board. And it also has that scythe mechanism where you've got a lot of stuff lined up on your board, but the more things you take off your board and put out on the main board or cover up those spots, the better your actions get. And so that's about as far as I'm going to go with it, because there's a lot to Paladins, but it's different than Architects for sure. They're not same game. They're not the same game. They're varied enough, but the artwork, the production, Paladins is part of that. She has Paladin/Architects because it's hard to pick one. They're both very, very good.
And they're both so different, but I love playing them with 2 players, so that's it.
Nice choice. So I'm going to go right into my second one. Is a game from Hurricane, published in 2019, and it is Nagaraja. We played this for the first time actually in Arizona. We were at a game store and got to play it, and it is really, really good. You have these like fate sticks, they call them. They're just weird shaped dice. They look like sticks, and they either have the snake symbol on them or the pips. And basically it's a hand management game, and you have a temple on a temple board, and you're entering the temple and you're trying to win these tiles each round that connect to these treasures that you have randomly mixed up and put on the outside, flipped upside down. And if you get like the real high scoring ones, if you get all 3 of them, you lose, even though they're each worth 5 points. But there's ways to manipulate each other's board, and you can only get those treasures when you connect pathways on those tiles to those outer treasures. It is so fun. You can move them around, and so it has Take That in it, but it's a good, I don't know, it's a good kind of Take That.
Yeah.
Because I hate Take That, and I don't think you like it either. We're not like into the Take That, like aha, But Nagaraja weaves the Take That so well into the card play and it's such a balanced game that you each have opportunities to do the very same things to each other, and that it's such a great 2-player game. Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
In fact, we just added it to our collection
Yeah,
because
what
the
about
first copy we played was not our own, so we had to add it.
I say Architects of the West Kingdom has a little bit of take that in there.
Oh, yeah.
And
Very much.
I think that's really well balanced too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Even when I'm super mean and I don't release the workers and I just keep them on my mat,
Yep.
so they have to pay that extra to get them.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is an amazing game. Yeah, all those are awesome. Now Dan gets to beat it.
I don't think I'm going to beat that.
All the pressure's on you.
I will say that this next game was kind of difficult for me to pick. I own a lot of like card-based engine builders / combo building games to assemble like something that vaguely remembers an engine, get some resources, turn it into points, what have you. But I'm going to go with Clank in Space because it's also a race, which I think puts it a little bit above some of the others ones in my collection. So in Clank in Space, it's a deck building game where you play the cards out of your hand, and these cards allow you to move around the board, and you get energy points to buy new cards from a trade row. It's a trade row deck builder. And you have to maneuver yourself around the ship and hack various data ports in order to unlock the command codes so that you can get into the command module, steal an artifact, and make it out. And the pacing of the game done fairly well, since you have to muck around the starship for a while. And also, there's a certain balance to the game where if you like blitz, sure, you're able to potentially attack the other players some more because, players that finish the game early aren't really eliminated. They get this boss turn where they could pull cubes out of the bag and potentially damage the other players that are still in the game. But like the person that's left in the game could take their time and rack up a couple more credits and get a couple more points and, end up being the victor after all that anyways.
I've only gotten to play this one once, and I've not played it 2-player, but it's a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed playing this one. And again, building the deck, going through that, and I enjoyed it more than Clank. Like you said, I enjoyed the race. I enjoy the getting back portion of the game. So I thought it was a lot of fun.
I'll say I also like Clank in Space a lot better than Clank because I think Clank in Space really gives you the feel that you might not make it out.
Right.
Where Clank is really hard to not make it out. Clank in Space, I like that stress. I don't like always being able to escape or dive to the bottom of the thing. And so I like Clank in Space a lot. It's a good game.
Yep, you need that. You gotta have that tension.
I have had a 2-player game of Clank in Space where neither player scored.
It can happen, which is fine. I've had I don't remember how many people. I think 4 of us were playing, and all of us died, and no one scored. It can happen. You go too hard, and you get those assassins out, and it's just, oh my gosh, it can tank really fast.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I love it.
My number one game, so I had a lot of big games out there, so it's funny that my number one game is a super light game, but it is by far my favorite 2-player game. Believe we're over 60 plays of it right now with my wife. Play it constantly, and that is Battle Line. Battle Line is a super simple 2-player game. You have 9 pawns that come out, which are your flags. You have a deck of cards, and you have a deck of tactics cards. All right? So you have 7 cards in your hand, and all you're trying to do is get the best set of 3 cards at each flag. You're trying to win 5 flags total, or 3 flags in a row. The tactics cards are what gives the game an additional edge, because there's a lot of strategy based on what you have versus the strategy card, or the tactics cards. The tactics cards could break the game in different ways, but the important thing to remember is you can never play more than 1 tactics card more than your opponent. So there's a lot of strategy in not playing tactics cards, and there's a lot of fun in when both players aren't doing very well, and you just sort of go nuts on those, or when to play them. Like if I'm doing fairly well, I know you never have enough steam to finish it a lot of times, so you're going to use that tactics cards, but it's how long you wait to use it that matters. It's just amazing. I'm really interested in seeing if my wife or I play anyone else with this game, because we played it so much, how it would turn out. But I love Battle Line. It's a super simple game. It gets a lot of flack because it's not high protection quality. The cards are good, but the art's off, and you just get little red pawns. But if that bothers you a lot, you can get Shot and Todden, which is the same game with better art. So there's alternatives out there. But I love GMT games. I love supporting them, and it doesn't bother me. I like Battle Line.
You've mentioned this one enough now at this point that I'm really looking forward to getting to play it with you, because it sounds like a blast.
It is amazing. It is a lot of fun, and it plays very fast.
And to put the 60 plays in context, you've owned this for 2 months, right?
We've owned it about 4 months.
Okay.
We're literally playing like
Still,
3
that's crazy.
times a day.
That's awesome. Love it.
I'm not even kidding.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and twice on Sundays.
We played one Saturday. We played like 12 times. It's amazing. Like you finish the game and you're like, I'm playing it again because you can't win. Sort of thing. So.
I never heard of Battle Line, but what was the second game you mentioned that
re-implemented? Shotten.
Shotten Taunton. Wow, that's a tongue twister. Yeah. I heard that mentioned once on I think the Dice Tower.
Yeah,
I've never heard of it before then. Yeah.
It's like a Scottish theme to it.
Mm-hmm.
Both are the same, so it doesn't really matter. I think the special tactics cards are a little different in Shotten Taunton, but whatever. The same idea. They break the game. It's like a nuclear war. When someone grabs one of those tactics cards, they're guaranteed to play one that they can. So what do? Do you start grabbing tactics cards too? Because they can destroy a set you're trying to make, breaking your ability to win. So, and it's a very cheap game. Both of them are very inexpensive. So yeah, definitely try it.
So far I have mentioned, I believe, strictly 2-player games. I'm going to break that with this one, and it's because I've mostly played it as a 2-player game and enjoy it as much 2-player as I have the chances that I've had playing with 3 or more, and that is Wingspan. I'm not tired of it yet. I continue to enjoy it. I like the art. I like the play. I like the engine building. I like to try to one-up myself every time I play this game. I want to get to a point where I have like fully filled out my entire thing. I still have not actually done that. I've never had every space filled with a bird card. I think that would be fun to do. So I don't know. I can't explain. I know there's a lot of people out there that I've talked to who are like, I have no interest in that game, or it's been too talked up, I guess. But it is one that I know that every time I get it to the table, I'm going to enjoy myself and have a good time playing it. So Wingspan for me is good at any count. So 2-player for sure.
I don't know if you can fill all the slots for Wingspan, all the habitats on there, and win.
No, I don't think you can.
I think you would guarantee lose did that.
Okay. Well, I have no idea.
You're gonna have to play the 1 to 2 food birds.
Well, that's true.
And I don't know. I'd be interested to see if you do it and what your score is.
Yeah. It's a very swingy game. You know, when the engine's working, it's working great. But when you're not getting the thing, like the thing that the one thing I don't like as much about the game is the 2 cards. They're not roll cards, but you know what I mean, like the what are they, like
the bonus cards?
What's that?
Yeah. The bonus cards?
Yeah, the objective cards, and you pick one. I get it. It's trying to like kickstart your strategy so you can keep it going, but there's times when that thing is just forgotten, you know. And I know that you can draw more. Some birds allow you to draw more of those, which is fine, but those sometimes have been notoriously difficult to get moving to get points on them. So
I would say
expansions actually help that. Yeah.
Ignore the bonus cards?
What's that?
I would say ignore the bonus cards.
Yeah, sometimes that's what I end up doing.
Yeah.
Because you'll get a lot more points by meeting the goals for each round than you would with those and the birds. One of the things is the newest expansion coming out, the Oceania one. I am super interested in because it corrects thing. I didn't really realize it was an issue, but it sort of is. It allows you to, it gives you new player boards, and it allows you to do things like re-roll the bird feeder before you get your food out of it. Refill the 3-card bird array thing before you pick your bird, because those blind draws are really bad.
They are.
Yeah, the blind draws though.
So I'm interested to see how much that amps up the game.
Can we can probably tell them. You're going to hear it first. So we were one of 36 reviewers selected by Stonemaier Games to receive Oceania. So
it's awesome. That is awesome.
Yes.
Congrats. It's awesome.
You know, we do some reviews for them, you know, completely objective, but you know, we put it through their paces, and Oceania looks like you said, it's going to really change up the game in big ways, and I think it's going to make it tighter. I think
because of the yellow eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm like Peter. When I first started playing this game, I was trying to get as many birds down as possible, and I found I was always losing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I maybe played this 12 or 13 times before I finally won a game. And that game I won, I had half as many birds as I had in any of the other games.
I've seen people win with 4 birds, 4 or 5 birds, because if did you notice too, like in the last round, it becomes like an egg race. It seems like everybody, okay, I can't do anything else with these actions, so I'm just going to put as many eggs on my cards. It's so funny because each one is a point. So if you put few birds down that carry a lot of eggs, and you get good on those nest types, they can really generate tons of points. And I love the tucking birds. It's first of all very thematic. We, you know, in Pennsylvania we have those red-tailed hawks, and we have bald eagles now, and all this stuff. And the fact that like when you draw, and it actually focuses on the wingspan, which is the name of the game.
Right.
I love that. I think the tucking cards, the birds of prey that actually will tuck birds underneath if they're under a certain wingspan, that is so neat. It's just really cool.
Yeah, the amount of flavor they put in this game with the wingspan and the what area it lives in, and then details about the bird is so nice. And the fact that they actually implement that make that part of the game really is nice. This is a game you can learn from. You don't have to learn anything, but you can easily just pick things up and learn about birds from this game.
Oh, my dad, I told you my dad is in his mid-70s, and when we were playing this, he was cracking us up. He said, look at this bird. It actually attracts its mate by the smell of its urine. Like, he was reading the favorite part that he had, the best part, the most fun he had. He's just over there doing his own little thing, and he's reading all the cards and telling us at the table. That's what made I knew the game was a hit right then.
Yeah. Yep. I've got the app now too that you can hold your card up to your phone and it will play the bird sound.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
That's
cool.
really cool.
Yeah. So it's got a good fan base. So, and like I said,
Elizabeth nailed it. She nailed it. She just did. Yeah.
So
I am writing that down to get that out.
Mm.
Okay, so my next one is Santorini. Now this is a pretty straightforward. The base game is pretty straightforward. You are simply moving and building, and the goal is there's 4 levels to these buildings. There's the basic level, then second, third story, then there's a roof. And the goal is to be able to move to get onto a third story, but you can never move up more than one story at a time. And if somebody caps your building with a roof, obviously you can't get to the third story. So it's a lot of just maneuvering and trying to slowly move up, and whilst watching the other player and making sure they can't get to there before. And then within the game, they also give you an advanced game option, which are these player powers, which aren't phenomenally powerful, but they're enough to change the game and make it really interesting. Like, one of them is just simply, after you move, you can build 2 twice instead of once. It's just simple things like that, but it really adds a lot of interest to the game, adds a lot of variability. It's you can just randomly do this, and then you have the Golden Fleece expansion and a couple of, I believe there's another expansion that you can add in, and just adds a lot more variety to it.
Did you see the new version of this coming out, the New York?
Yes, that looks like it's more geared to 3 or 4 players, right?
I think so. They played it on the Dice Tower, I think 3 player, and yeah, if it doesn't play great at 2, then I'd rather have base. We don't have base Santorini. We haven't played that one yet.
No, but I would like to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, base Santorini can play as 3. It's really meant for 2, but it works all right with 3. 4 is a little bit shaky.
All right, so my final game is another cooperative game. No, it's not Pandemic. Atlantis Rising 2nd Edition is just so beautiful. I love the table presence of it, and I love cooperative games, and this one works really well at 2 players. So you're trying to save different sections. You're trying to save Atlantis from sinking, and you're rolling dice. So I know that you don't really like this game as much as me because you hate dice rolling. You don't hate it, but you're not very good at it. But you're placing, it's worker placement, but your workers are the dice, and you're putting it on your board, and you're trying to save different sections of Atlantis from sinking. And then you're also trying to, is it the portal at the end? What is that
You're
called?
trying to build a machine. Yeah, I actually do like this game. There's a lot of ways to mitigate things with your variable player powers, but you're building a machine.
Building a machine.
9 pieces.
Yeah, and
just
trying to do it together, and like, no, don't roll that because you've been sucking tonight, like, and just trying to figure out which one of us is going to get the different sections and everything. It's just really fun, and I just love the artwork though. They did a really good job on the 2nd edition.
And they're kickstarting the first expansion for it, which is Monstrosities, which we are backing, because it's adding Medusa, it's adding the Harpies, and they're actually going to be trying to thwart you because it's a race. You're racing against the island sinking.
Yeah.
Because every turn, depending on the number of players, you have to draw cards, and it'll tell you which part of the island is sinking. And so the tension comes in because the best actions are further out toward the end where they're going to sink first. And do you put your worker there where it's best to get the most resources, because you need those resources to buy the pieces of the machine? It is so good. And by the way, it plays fantastic solo, I would say too. I actually beat it solo, barely, and I mean I was sweating. I actually love this game. It's great, even because there's only 2 dice in the game, but the variable player power is what makes it really good.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I know you love it a lot too.
Yep.
So It does play well. It plays well at all player counts.
It does, yeah.
It's interesting you should mention this because just before we started recording, I was looking at this on Kickstarter trying to decide whether to back it or not.
Yes.
I haven't played the base game yet.
You won't be disappointed. I'm telling you, it's fantastic. And it looks like with Medusa, she's going to come in and she can turn some of your workers to stone, and so it's going to slow you down. And so it looks really cool. I think they're adding a lot of neat flavor because again, you play it a lot. Okay, what's next? So now they're adding some more mechanisms into it to really make it great, which is what I think expansion should do. Okay, my last game is it's really one of two games. I don't want to say it's a family of games because I heard that that's cheating from Nathan. So it's Fantasy Flight published the most recent game, and Days of Wonder published the original in 2004, and it's the Command and Colors. I already talked about this a little bit, kind of a hint. Memoir 44 and then Battle Lore 2nd Edition. Memoir 44 I think is still my favorite. I like the fantasy theme of Battle Lore 2nd Edition. I like what they changed because it's not Richard Borg that did Battle Lore, but it's still the Command and Color system. I like the lore aspect to it, the lore cards, and I like the variable setup. Each person pulls a card, and that's how their side of the board is set up. And then you have your decoys, and the way you deploy units is really neat. But I just have to, my grandfather passed away over 20 years ago, but he was actually a POW in World War II, and he was shot down over Germany. He was a B-17 crew member on a B-17 bomber, and he had to parachute out. His plane got shot down. He survived and was on the ground in Germany for a while. He told the whole story. I have it archived on CD, and when I was just a young, impressionable kid, I did a report on him in school, and he recorded all of that for me so I could use it in my report. So I fell in love with World War II, especially like war history. And so Memoir 44, when I discovered this game, I pounded the salt trying to find everything that is out there for it. There's one thing I'm missing, and it's the volume 1 of the campaign book. I have volume 2, the actual in-print book, and it's still in the shrink wrap. But I've tried to find everything else. I'm so angry at Days of Wonder that they just won't reprint stuff. And now with Battle Lore, Fantasy Flight isn't reprinting the extra armies for some reason, and they're hundreds of dollars on eBay. So both games from a publishing standpoint and a reprint standpoint are frustrating me to no end. But I do have most of everything for Memoir, and okay, that's enough about the history of it. The game is very simple. The dice are, and again, I say I don't like dice, but I love the dice in Memoir because the symbol you roll is the unit that is taken out, and it makes it so easy. The grenade takes out anything. The infantry takes out infantry. The tank takes out the tank. The star is a miss. But what I love is how everything is set up thematic. Everything is set up historical. There's a historical blurb in there about what happened, and you can follow campaigns. You can even get the Overlord and play 8 players, which I've still never done, which I would love to do, where you have a commander and each section of the board is being commanded by someone. I find the whole system just fantastic. The terrain, the movement, it's very push and pull. It's, again, it does come down to some luck. It does come down to the luck of the card draws because you're also drawing from a common deck with your hand of cards. But when you play them and how you play them is all strategy, and I find that it's very appealing. It's still my favorite, and so
it's a really good pick.
Yeah, both of those games are very, very good.
So with the Overlord, don't you have to have 2 copies of the base game?
Yes, yeah, you do. You have to have the Overlord expansion, which gives you a fold-out paper map of the entire thing, or you can just take 2. I don't think you do need 2 copies of the base game. It comes with a paper map that you unfold, so you don't really need 2 boards.
I bet you shut up and sit down just bought 2 copies.
I think they did, yeah. Yeah, I watched that. That's a fantastic video.
That was.
They dressed up as military people. It was so funny.
That.
Oh, yeah. It was really, really good. It's such a good series of games, so... I just wish Battle Lore, I wish I could find those extra armies because I think it would just add a little bit more.
I like Battle Lore a little bit better, but I like Memoir, the historical aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm the same. I like Battle Lore a little better. I'm very mad that they're just not printing it anymore. I mean, it's awesome. Why? It's like...
Well, it's their Terranoff universe, and some games in their Terranoff universe they just abandon, and others like Descent, they just, I don't get it. Why did they even buy the license if they were just going to print a little bit of it? I don't know. I mean... what do we know, right? We don't work for them, so. But it is a little frustrating.
Yeah, maybe they'll make a 3rd edition. I don't know.
Maybe.
I'd unfortunately get it if they made a 3rd edition.
Yeah,
That'll
that'll
look with extra armies, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Days of Wonder, from what I heard, Days of Wonder is supposed to be reprinting things for Memoir, and they do release, like every now and then they'll release like a whole print run of Pacific Theater or Mediterranean
Yeah,
Theater.
I saw that.
They just came out with the Air Superiority pack. I did get that. New flight plan. It's actually hanging on the wall over here off camera. So the first printing of that I didn't get, but I did get new flight plan when they so they are trying to, like, I guess, push out some stuff, but I don't get it. It's a moneymaker. I don't know why Days of Wonder, which is now Asmodee, I think they're still owned by Asmodee, or did they go back to Days of Wonder?
No, they're owned by Asmodee as far as I know. But I believe I read an article for them about it, and they said that the Memoir 44 base game will always sell, and they sometimes have problems with expansions.
Okay.
So that's why I think that you generally see their base game in print, but the expansions are like in and out.
Yeah. That's how I like I said, I got most of it, but there's still a lot of stuff that's very hard to get. Like they release submissions in like paper envelopes. I don't know if you, those are so wildly, I mean, I've seen them go for $500-$600 for a new because they've been out of print for so long.
It's ridiculous.
So some parts of it are easy to get, other parts are just notoriously difficult to get, but it's a great game. If even if you just play the base, it's enough. It's a good game.
Yeah, I definitely agree. All right, see how Dan does the final game.
Well, this isn't the most awesome game on my list. That's for sure. But it's my last. The last game I'm going to mention is At the Gates of Loyang. For full disclosure, this is a U. Rosenberg game. This is the only U. Rosenberg game that I actually have found I have enjoyed. I've tried quite a number of them. Surprised it's a farming game? Who would have thought? From him? So in this game, you have like a little deck of like field cards. And you get one of those per round, and you have like vegetables that you have to buy and then plant, and like you have customers that you have to deliver these vegetables to in order to earn money. And the game is really good 2-player, I think, because the scores are just so tight. So at the end of each round, you have an opportunity to go up the path of prosperity, which is a score track, and you pay 1 coin to go up 1 space. And then you can go up additional spaces, but you have to pay the number that is on that space. So to go from 5 to 7 is 1 to go to 6, but then 7 more to go to 7. So usually the game rolls out with a very tight score at the end. You're also just like swimming in all these vegetables. It's like my normal process for playing this game is just to plant as much as possible, because you will use it eventually.
Swimming in vegetables. I don't think I've ever heard that expression used in board gaming. That's awesome.
I don't know what is with him and carrots too. Like, why are carrots always the most valuable? Like what?
There's no carrots in Gates of Loyang.
There's no carrots in Gates. There's carrots in everything else.
There's leeks. Leeks is the most valuable vegetable. Leeks and beans are the most valuable.
I will say carrots are the least valuable resource in 8-Minute Empire by Ryan Lockett.
Yeah, I love 8-Minute Empire. We played that a lot.
Oh, yeah, that's a good 2-player game.
It's actually a good 2-player game.
Yeah.
And super fast.
Super fast.
But not 8 minutes.
Definitely not 8 minutes.
No. I mean, if you know what you're doing, we've played 2-player games maybe 20 minutes. 15, 20 minutes. Yeah. It can go fast.
All right, so that was our list of about 5 2-player games that we all like. Definitely thanks to all aboard gamers for joining us on this, and we hope to have you on again and maybe do some playthroughs with you guys in the future or have some fun. But thank you for coming.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, the story of that was kind of funny. You guys had a... Am I allowed to talk about this?
Yeah, no, go for it. Go for it.
You? I have
to.
No,
go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, we're here on a bribe, folks, okay? No, I'm kidding. Look, everybody in COVID, right? We're itching to try to get something, anything. And one of the events, I was looking around because we watch your stuff, we like your stuff, we listen to your podcast now especially, and went to your website and noticed under your events that you had something coming up at the Butler Library in person, an event. I went, what? These guys they're saying no, we're going to meet and we're going to play games. And I reached out. Thankfully, I reached out before we made 50-minute drive to Butler that day, the day before actually. I reached out to, I didn't know who was going to answer since I knew there's 4 of you, and found out that, oops, that wasn't supposed to be there. And we were so disappointed and not mad. We weren't mad. We understand.
Disappointed. We felt like we haven't been gaming with a group of people
for a while.
For a long time. We've had some family and friends over, but it's not the same as a gaming group. It's just not the same.
Yeah, it's not quite the same. People that are passionate about it. Our family will play with us, but they're not, they're not you guys, And so just in talking with James was the one that fielded all of that. But anyway, I think it was James. Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just playfully said, well, how about you have us on the podcast as a payback, I guess. And I wasn't being serious at all, but you jumped on it. It's been a wonderful pleasure. We've never done this before, and we thank you so much. We hope we can come back. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
So, All Aboard Gamer, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So we are All Aboard Gamer. We actually rebranded. That's a long story, but we used to have another account and another, things happen.
We can say what it was called. It was called Board Game Noob, and it was as we were getting into the hobby, because I was so new, he thought, well, let's approach this as a newbie would,
right,
and kind of focus on that as our audience. And then it was kind of funny because people were like, well, you're not really noobs anymore.
The name started to not make a lot of sense. We actually had 2,500 followers on Instagram at that point, and we knew we made a tactical decision that was going to hurt us. But we had to rebrand. There were some other things that are part of that are private, but we rebranded now as All Aboard Gamer, and we're not particularly fond of trains or train games. We just thought it was kind of a play on words. We were just thinking, and I was tossing ideas back and forth with Lexi, and I just said, All Aboard Gamer. Like, we think that there's a place for board games for everyone, All Aboard Gamer. So it just kind of ran together. It became All Aboard Gamer, and now we run the All Aboard Gamer YouTube channel. We're on Instagram, and we are on Facebook, all at All Aboard Gamer. All of those links are there, all the same. But we do a couple of segments on there. We do On Second Thought, which is kind of a newer segment. We do reviews. We do not really previews yet, but we're working on that. But some unboxings
and Perfect Pairings, which was the brainchild of my husband, who I love to cook for. And he thought that would be just such a good way to kind of pair a game with something that I'm passionate about, which is cooking. And we're both passionate about board games, but he's definitely more passionate than I am. So it kind of just brought both of our worlds together. And who doesn't like food and games at the same time? So
yeah.
I have to say, I personally have seen a couple of those segments, and it's good stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we're trying to do what we can, to make it kind of appeal to a broad audience. We want to bring meals. You've really stretched yourself.
Yeah, I've done a lot of authentic meals that I typically wouldn't do. I purchased saffron for the first time. Saffron is like the gold of spices. It really is. It was like $20 for a little thing of saffron, but I've always wanted to cook with it, and now I have, so it's a perfect excuse. So
yeah,
it's really fun.
The funny thing about saffron is if you're trying to look for saffron fraud, because apparently there's a lot of it out there, you have to take a good portion of your saffron and do a dye test with it, ruining it.
What?
Oh wow!
I'm not that.
Why would you do that? I'm good. If it tastes like it should, I'm fine.
It's McCormick. It's
it was McCormick, and the meal that she made with it definitely tasted different. It was really, really good. And she really is a fantastic cook. And it was interesting because it was because of the Dice Tower that we pushed ourselves to really think of that segment, because Tom Vassell, we reached out to him, and we don't know him. And he didn't know us. And so pitching something when you're not even really sure what you can offer, he had enough reviewers, and he was very flat out and honest and told me that. I said, I have enough reviewers. I don't need more reviewers right now. Okay. He said, you can come up with something short and something unique. He said, I'm always looking for something unique. That's all he said. But it really drove us into kind of, okay, what could we possibly do that other channels haven't really done? And her cooking, it was her cooking. The board games are a side note. It's really her and her passion for the cooking. It worked, and Tom loved it. And so we're not on every week because, our schedules, it takes a lot of work to film that in the kitchen and do all that. But it's really been great, and we're very thankful.
Thank you for listening. If you have any feedback for us, feel free to visit us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Board Game Geek Guild 2989, or our website at tabletopgamingguild.com. And don't forget to like, follow, and or subscribe. Tabletop Gaming Guild is a product of Tabletop Gaming Guild, LLC. All rights reserved.